Happy Gilmore 2, now streaming on Netflix, is from director Kyle Newacek, who did prior Netflix Adam Sandler movie Murder Mystery and several episodes of Workaholics and What We Do in the Shadows. Written by Tim Herlihy, who worked on The Waterboy, The Wedding Singer, and the original Happy Gilmore, and by Sandler himself. In it, the titular character has quit golf for years after a personal tragedy and has now just gotten back into it. What follows is probably, despite its flaws, Sandler's best comedy work in years. It feels more like his best work from the 90s than some of his dumber work from later on. What exactly separates his good, silly work from his bad, silly work is something I don't know. But it works here. Is it just because of the fact that it's familiar to us all from his good work? I sure hope not. And probably not. Either way, this does still have some fun jokes and set pieces that are more successful than his previous works, even if it's still not as good as the original. He plays his usual character as the nice guy in a crazy over-the-top world, and he is likable in that role. However, it also brings up a lot of stuff from the original that oftentimes can feel more like just nostalgia bait, which does threaten to bring down the whole movie. The movie does feel like it's copying what came before, but when it does that in ways that feel charming and not cynical, it works. This somehow manages to be both a fun return to quality from Adam Sandler and everything wrong with legacy sequels at the same time. But when it's good, it's good. I suppose there are worse ways to make an Adam Sandler sequel.
Was there something you wish to discuss? Because this might not be the right time to...
Play will continue! Cars! Get your cars, boys!
Yeah, I always felt a man's grip on his club just like a man's grip on his world.
Raj, meet your new partner.
New partner. Too old for this.
If these guys can just stand each other.
What you got in there?
Boy Smith,
A lot of old timers carry those.
the bad guys don't stand a chance.
The Naked Gun is from director Akiva Schaffer, director of Hot Rod and Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping. He also wrote it along with Dan Greger and Doug Mann, who worked on Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, How I Met Your Mother, and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Yet another legacy sequel. If Happy Gilmore 2 was the sequel nobody knew they wanted, then Naked Gun is the sequel that really nobody knew they wanted. But it is the superior movie. Also, unlike Happy Gilmore 2, this one is actually playing in theaters. Probably the first time in a long time we're getting a full-on theatrical comedy. I mean, when was the last one? Okay, not the best example. Whatever, but this is the first time a comedy this silly is going into theaters. Paramount is the true champions of bringing back comedy. Oh wait, never mind. But this had every chance to ruin the legacy of the original trilogy, especially with how most 21st century spoofs have been. But this works because of how it sticks to the winning formula of the original. Silly jokes at a rapid fire rate. The movie isn't even 90 minutes long, but it has more jokes in it than most longer comedies. And the vast majority of them hit. Even the weaker jokes got laughs from the audience I saw it with. They laughed every time. I can't think of one where, okay, maybe the parts where they had the New Year's ball look like a pair of testicles, but for the most part, even the jokes that didn't land as well as others were still good enough for a lot of people, and the vast majority of them were funny and often hilarious, a particularly big accomplishment for a movie with so many jokes. Many people also credit the popularity of the original to the fact that they hired Leslie Nielsen, a dramatically trained actor, to play a completely deadpan. And they've stayed true to that by casting the similarly named Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin, son of Frank Drebin, a dramatic actor who leaned hard into the grizzled action star role since the first time he tried it. And he thankfully plays this just as straight-faced, delivering puns and one-liners with the same gravelly voice he used to threaten bad guys with. In my most anticipated of the year list, where I said I was cautiously optimistic about it, I said that I liked that he'd probably make fun of his own action star image. Well, I was mostly wrong. This does technically make fun of that image, but he gives no winks to the camera, and the jokes probably wouldn't have landed as well if he had. I think the only other real foray into comedy that Neeson had done may have been his scene in Ted 2, where he does basically the same thing. Seth MacFarlane produced this movie. And the humor also stays true to the original. Same lowbrow jokes, puns, and sight gags. It stays PG-13 like the originals, but the PG-13 of a time passed before R became pretty much the standard for comedies, when comedies with that ratings pushed how crass and raunchy it can be without restricting the teenage audience. The whole movie feels like it could have been a lost parody from the 80s, and unlike many other legacy sequels, it doesn't have any direct callbacks to the original. Yes, there's that scene in all the trailers where everybody's talking to the pictures of the original cast. It's just that one scene, and it's simply for character purposes and some jokes that are unrelated to any from the original. That OJ joke is pretty much the anti-nostalgia bait. The official promotional popcorn bucket is a reference to a joke from the original, but that joke never comes up here. In fact, I hadn't seen that movie in a while, and until I was reminded of that scene, I had no idea what that had to do with any of this. That's like if the bucket for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was in the likeness of Willem Dafoe. Why is the popcorn bucket more reliant on nostalgia than the actual movie? But it also updates the humor just a little, enough to make tasteful, non-cringeworthy references to modern stuff. The villain is a billionaire tech bro who is basically a slightly less evil version of Elon Musk. There's also the topic of recent distrust of the police, which I honestly don't know whether or not it's out of touch to not bring it up at least sometimes, even in such a silly comedy. Once again, Akiva Schaffer is a big collaborator with Andy Samberg, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine's last season kinda had to go all out on their commentary because it was right after George Floyd and it kinda ruined it. Here they reference it occasionally, but it's restricted to a few well-placed jokes about Liam Neeson being too much of a loose cannon, which all surprisingly fit in with the rest of the movie. It's the farthest thing from an important or even a political movie, but it's still just enough that nobody's gonna write some really stupid article about how it's propaganda or something. Theatrical comedy is finally back. This is the funniest movie that's been in the theater in a long time. Does it suck that it had to be a reboot of a classic trilogy that nobody asked for? Maybe. But it's in the best hands possible, aside from maybe the actual Zucker brothers. We all gotta make compromises. And it turns out this is barely even that much of a compromise.